before the trials could begin, they had to face the man who held their lives in his hands. Zanithal, one of the 10 who gathered volunteers for Zanithal. He had gathered 1,316 souls more than requested, but fewer than would survive. The base was a city of tension. People from every walk of life gathered under the same banners, waiting for a signal. But Canna wasn't there to give them a signal. He was there to give them a choice. The path ahead is dangerous. His voice rang out, steady and cold. No one can promise you a return. Understand this. Those who enter Zanithal never see their homes again. He stripped away their illusions of glory. He didn't offer a path to victory. He offered a warning of the unknown. He told them that courage was the minimum, calmness was the requirement. In the silence that followed, the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just an exam anymore. You could see it in their eyes, the weight of the choice they had made. Each volunteer had to ask themselves, what am I willing to lose to see what's on the other side? As night claimed the base, the volunteers were led to their rooms. It would be their last night of true safety. Under the cold light of the moon, 1,316 people tried to find sleep, knowing that when the sun rose, their lives would never be the same. Morning arrived with a cold clarity. General Canna stood before the thousand once again. The time for warnings was over. The time for measurement had begun. 5 trials designed to strip a person down to their quarters, see how they think, how they move, and ultimately, how they choose. The first test was one of logic. Puzzles and complex problems were laid out before them. In the quiet of the morning, the only sound was the scratching of pens and the heavy breathing of those struggling to find the patterns. It wasn't just about the answer, it was about who kept their cool when the logic failed. Then, the mud and the walls. A grueling course of strength and endurance. But Canna's voice rang out with a twist. Speed was not the goal. This was a test of the collective. Some rushed for personal glory, while others, the ones the general truly watched, stayed back to lift their teammates out of the dirt. By midday, the test turned to survival. Small groups were given supplies that could never be enough for everyone. The true trial wasn't the hunger. It was the conversation. Some shared until they had nothing. Others argued until the group fell apart. Here, the real leaders began to emerge from the chaos. Exhaustion set in, and with it, the test of trust. Blindfolded and silent, they had to rely on the voices of strangers to guide them through the dark, passing secret messages, listening for the truth in a sea of noise. This was where they learned that in Zanithal, you are only as safe as the person standing behind you. Finally, the silence of the interrogation room. One volunteer, one officer, one question with no right answer. This wasn't a test of skill, but of morality. In the flickering lamplight, they had to decide what they believed in when everything else was stripped away. The exam was over. Now, the real journey begins. Sunset brought an end to the grueling trials. As the volunteers collapsed into a weary silence, General Canna offered them his thanks. He didn't need to say it, they could feel it. The tests had stripped them of their masks, revealing exactly who they were under pressure. The results were coming. At dawn, the air was cold and heavy with anticipation. 1,316 souls stood on the training ground, eyes locked on the single sheet of paper in General Canna's hand. He spoke first of their honor, of the courage and discipline they had all shown, regardless of what the paper said. Then, the first name was spoken. At the very top of the list, with the highest scores in strength, judgment, and teamwork, stood Azza. Cana paused, letting the name hang in the air. This wasn't just a score. It was a mark of respect. In front of the entire assembly, the general offered a single, firm nod. Acknowledgement from one warrior to another. But the mission had its limits. Cana began to read the list of those who would advance. 999 names. For them, the journey into Zanithal was just beginning, and the trials ahead would make these tests look like child's play. As the names rang out, the crowd erupted. Cheers of relief and fists raised in the air. For 999 people, the dream was still alive. But in the shadows of their celebration, the weight of the moment began to settle. 317 volunteers would not continue. There was no disgrace in their departure, only honor. Cana thanked them for their service, promising they would return home with the gratitude of the mission. Some embraced, some wept in the quiet morning light. They had all been tested, but as Cana reminded them, true character isn't measured by whether you win or lose, but by the person you choose to be when everything is on the line. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the jagged peaks of the horizon, General Cana sat in the silence of his office. One name kept echoing in his mind. Azza. He remembered their first meeting by the fields, the way the young man carried himself with a calm clarity that most veterans never achieve. Today, Azza hadn't just passed. He had conquered everything. Respect is a rare currency in Zanithal, and Azza had earned a fortune of it. Wanting to see if the man matched the scores, Cana sent word. An officer found Azza among the weary crowd. The general wants to see you. Now, no reasons were given, only the weight of a command that could not be ignored. The general's office was a room built for war, simple, functional, and cluttered with the maps of a world that didn't want to be charted. As Azza stepped inside, the air changed. This wasn't a military briefing. It felt personal. Cana watched him quietly from behind the desk, measuring the man standing before him one last time. Azza, Cana began, his voice low and steady. I called you here because you impressed me today. You showed purpose when others showed panic. He paused, gesturing to the tall young man standing like a shadow beside him. Before we talk further, I want you to meet my son. This is Cana. He will join you in Zanithal. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Cana, the tall, imposing figure standing next to the general. He hadn't been in the trials. His name wasn't read among the 999. Cana was different. He was the 1,000th volunteer selection, made not by score, but by blood. Shock flickered across Azza's face, breaking his calm for the first time. He looked from the son to the father, his voice thick with disbelief. Your son is taking the exam too, he asked. You know the truth, General. You know, those who enter do not return. Why would you want this for him? The question hung in the air, thick with the scent of oil and old maps, but it wasn't the general who answered. Cana stepped forward, his voice steady and devoid of doubt. I chose this, Azza. My father didn't push me. This is my decision. In the cold light of the office, Azza saw the truth. Cana wasn't a victim of his father's ambition. He was the partner in it. Cana leaned forward, the shadows deepening the lines on his face. If I could protect my son, I would, he admitted. But there is more to Zanithal than just coming back alive. He began to speak of a secret known only to the few, that the last survivor doesn't just gain fame, they gain a silent hidden power over nations, wealth, and the very leaders of the world. Azri listened. The scale of the game finally coming into focus. You believe the survivor can change the whole world? He asked. The stakes had just shifted from simple survival to the ultimate control of the future. The trial wasn't just a test. It was an election for a hidden king. I have seen it. Kanner's voice was like iron. He spoke of wealth shifting and rulers appearing at the survivor's whim. This was why he was willing to risk his own blood. If a member of his house won, they wouldn't just survive the world, they would steer it. They would guide the world in any direction they chose. The revelation sparked a memory for Azra, a memory of his grandmother's soft voice, and her strange hope that he would join this journey to bring justice. She said I might change the world, Azra whispered, but she never explained how she knew. The mystery of his own past was now tied to the dark heart of Zanithal. How did a simple woman know the secrets of emperors? Kanner looked thoughtful, the lantern light reflecting in his eyes. The truth is whispered in many places, Azar, he replied. Secrets passed through families like ghosts. Perhaps it was a whisper she heard, or perhaps she simply saw the heart of a survivor in him before he ever knew it existed. The weight of the general's words hung in the air, but it was Connor who broke the silence. Whatever happens, we are in this together now, he said, his eyes meeting Azar's. He spoke of reasons and chances of a future that only time could reveal. In that dim office, the hierarchy of general and volunteer began to dissolve into a pact between survivors. General Kanner looked directly at Azar, his gaze piercing. He spoke of Azar's rare skill, the ability to think clearly when the world is falling apart. But then, the commander became a father. He asked for the one thing he couldn't order, for Azar to work with Connor, to form a team. To be the strength the other might lack when the trials of Zanithal truly began. Connor turned, his expression open and devoid of the pride his rank might suggest. I'm fine with that, Azar. If you are. It was an invitation, not a command. For the first time, the 1000th volunteer wasn't a shadow of his father, but a man seeking an equal. Azar took a moment, the gravity of the alliance sinking in. In the silence of his thoughts, he weighed the risks. A team meant a shared fate. It meant responsibility. Finally, he gave a slow, determined nod. I agree. We will face whatever comes next together. A small, satisfied smile touched Kanner's lips. This was the result he had hoped for. Good, he said, his voice regaining its command. You two can rely on each other. That will make you both stronger than Zanithal itself. The three of them stood in silence as the last light of day bled out over the mountains. The journey ahead would be brutal, and the secrets of the hidden power loomed over them all. But as the stars began to appear, one thing was certain: they would no longer walk the path alone. The pact was made. The trial was over, and the wild was waiting.